everybody. Welcome to the NESN Bruins podcast. I'm NESN.com's Mike Cole, joined, as always, by NESN.com's Logan Mullen. We are here for a special summer vacation edition. Logan, I think you know, if we were talking back in June, July, whenever we did our last podcast, if you had told me, August 22nd might be our next podcast episode,
I'd wonder what had happened.
Yeah,
but what
transpired. Here we are, though, on August 22nd.
There has absolutely been news.
Yes.
Now Charlie McAvoy and Brandon Carlo remain unsigned, but
correct.
Nevertheless, there is Bruins/NESN news.
You are no selling the fact that I just yoinked your joke from you, but I appreciate it.
You botched the first take, so I figured I'd at least let you
That's very nice
have this one.
I wouldn't call this an emergency podcast. I think it's always nice to check in with you about the Bruins, but we're not here necessarily to discuss the upcoming season. We got into that in our conversation that's going to come up in a few minutes with the newest member of the NESN Bruins family, new NESN Bruins rinkside reporter, Sophia Jurksztowicz, which is, she was a delight. She has a very difficult name to pronounce when you're first learning it. It's something that I think New England is going to have a lot of fun with, especially with the way that we are known for speaking very well here. So that'll be fun. But Sophia was awesome.
She was great. And, we just finished recording that about 15, 20 minutes ago. And my biggest takeaway was that she not only is very, I guess outgoing would be part of the, a word to use, but she also, I think what I appreciated the most was she was more than willing to admit that she doesn't have it all figured out. She's very willing to learn, very excited to learn, was another thing I picked up on. It's just excited to be in Boston, be with the Bruins. I mean, I think you and I both agreed, too, when they made the hire, that in terms of just sheer experience, especially around hockey, it was such a great hire.
Did you even mention where she's coming from?
She is coming from Canada.
Coming from Canada, home of hockey. I don't know if you heard that.
I have heard that.
She's coming from Toronto. She's done a lot of work up there. She was with Sportsnet, did some stuff for Hockey Night in Canada. She's done work for the NHLPA. She's covered a little bit of this, a little bit of that. She's done it all.
Yeah, she gets into that, and the podcast is pretty interesting.
One thing I really enjoyed in talking with her is how much she just loves hockey. I think that's going to be something that is very well received here, where I don't want to say hockey has I will say hockey has a bit of an inferiority complex.
It's been a little while.
Inferior complex, whatever. Across the sport. I don't think we have that here in New England. It is, I kind of mentioned this when we were talking to her, hockey is a big deal in New England. You don't get that everywhere in America. So I think, people in New England are going to be really excited to welcome her here, because I think she shares that same passion. And I think that's going to come through in her work too. So
yeah, I think that it was, for one, she was very excited to be part of the podcast, which I can't even imagine. High marks from me right away.
I think she's great.
Yeah.
I think she's probably the best employee NESN has ever had. I think, I don't want to.
What did it for me is
I don't want to give any spoilers away, though. I think she's a huge fan of mine.
Yeah, you got 3. That's a great question. I got precisely 0.
I don't want to pat myself on the back.
You absolutely lapped me on that. But I don't know. We'll let the listeners be the judge. I thought my question wasn't even about the Florida Panthers, but the Florida Panthers were involved.
This is going to be a recurring theme.
You can get used to this. This is about to become the NESN Florida Panthers podcast.
Correct. All right. So anybody who's clicked on this link, listening, hoping to hear a podcast with Sophia, is getting sick of listening to us. So let's get into that conversation with new Bruins rinkside reporter Sophia Jurksztowicz.
All right, so we're joined now on the NESN Bruins podcast by the new NESN Bruins rinkside reporter, Sophia Jurksztowicz. Sophia, how's it going?
Good, you nailed the last name.
Did I? Oh, I was so excited about that.
That was going to be our first question.
Wait. I don't know why I even said that, because the W is actually a V, but it was close, and as close as nailing it as a first-timer would get. So it's Jurksztowicz, but very good job.
Jurksztowicz.
There you go. You got it.
All right, cool.
Not bad.
Mike and I were practicing a little bit before we came on to record it. But we're super excited to have you at NESN. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. I understand this is probably a pretty busy time for you. So I guess my initial question would be, when did you find out that you got the job, and what have the ensuing weeks been like since?
Oh my gosh, the ensuing weeks have been insanity, but in a good way. Just, a lot of loose ends to tie up, and then obviously to move across, not across the country, but from one country to another. And it's a lot, but I'm really excited. I found out a couple of weeks ago that my visa was approved, because that was also something that we were worried about, obviously. But I, as a Canadian, I'm able to work in the States and cover the Boston Bruins, so I'm super pumped. I guess I've been wrapping up work here. I worked for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and as well as Hockey Night in Canada for a couple of years as well. So, I hope to fans listening that they'll accept me, and I have a lot of hockey knowledge that I can't wait to use in this fantastic market.
Yeah, so I guess in the interest of full disclosure, I take it you probably didn't grow up a Bruins fan, huh?
Well, no, I guess I have to be. I did not. I grew up a fan of the rival team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I will be honest with you, I don't know how you guys feel. It's a conversation I have with my friends who don't work in sports and my friends who do. As soon as you start working in the industry, your fandom, it just completely changes. You're not really fans of a team. I mean, that's hard probably for my dad to hear, who raised me to make sure I loved all his teams. But really, when you're working in the industry, especially if you're out meeting athletes and a reporter that gets to interact with them, you just start to, it's a job, and I'm obsessed with what I do, but it's from a different lens. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but you associate it with work a little bit more. And like I said, when you meet athletes too, sometimes you meet some fantastic people, and you kind of just become fans of them. Like, you want them to do well, you want them to succeed, and they all play for different teams, obviously. And then sometimes you meet some people that you're like, you're interesting. I thought you would have been different, or they're tough people to know, I guess, and or they give media a hard time, and then that changes your perspective too. So I have to admit, I'm not. I don't think I have a team anymore. I've covered sports for so long that storylines, and you love people, and it wavers for sure. But on the record, I'm a Bruins person now, so that's got to be official, and that's where I'm at. I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, I would venture to agree that a lot of the fanhood kind of gets taken out of it. In some respects, I'd probably argue too that it helps with the reporting if you're covering a team that you're not a fan of, because you can look at it through a more objective lens than if you had necessarily any emotional ties to them.
Oh, totally. Totally. And it's just not, it's not good. It's not, you shouldn't really be having emotional ties with if it's your constant job. But like I said, some of the reporters that I've known that have been in the industry forever, you really do fall in love with storylines, right? Like a good story, whatever that may be. And that's hard not to get behind sometimes. But otherwise, you walk into the rink. When I was covering the Toronto Maple Leafs for years and years and years, it's your office. So you're not, you talk to the same people, you see the same reporters. You're not really thinking about wins or losses other than what it means for your job as a reporter.
Definitely, yeah. And it's, at the end of the day, it's like you said, it's a job. Yeah, it's just kind of it's a fun job at times, but it's still a job. I guess one thing, both Logan and I have covered the Bruins in our time here at NESN. I was a beat reporter for a couple seasons. I think one thing that I really noticed, and I think you probably can speak to this better than we can, especially with the work that you've done for the NHLPA, or even some of the stuff that you did at Sportsnet and things like that, is when you're that close to hockey players, most of them, I won't say all of them, but most of them are pretty good dudes, and I think there's something about that community that is pretty endearing. What are the certain things that you like, about covering hockey specifically? What are the kind of things that stand out about the sport itself and being around that as frequently as you are?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did dabble in baseball for a while, and some basketball coverage as well, and then as well as other sports that would be considered Olympic sports, so swimming, diving, tennis, those kind of things. So I have done quite a bit, and hockey stands out for sure. You're absolutely right. That's a community. And let's be honest, like every major league has some sort of a community sense and feel. But it is quite exceptional in the NHL. And there's this brotherhood, there's this family tie that just doesn't go away ever long after they've retired. And it's not, it's throughout leagues. So, you know, if we're talking just the NHL, it's not necessarily true. The AHL as well, in Europe, they all have this sense of respect for each other, even if they're enemies on the ice, and an understanding of what it took to get where they are, and an understanding of what it means for their families to help them get to where they are, and wives and girlfriends and kids that have to move, and so on and so forth. And that does happen in other leagues, obviously, too, but there is something different about hockey, and I wish I could pinpoint it. In fact, when I do work with the NHLPA, I cover a lot of their fundraisers and events and golf tournaments, and so you have some current athletes and some former hockey players there. And even when I ask them, you know, what is it about hockey? What is it about the community that makes you want to come out to these events that creates this bonding? And they can't exactly put it into words. So it'd be even harder for me, kind of on the outside looking in, to put it into words. But a ton of respect for each other and a ton of support for each other too, especially now with the way we can communicate with cell phones. Like I know that guys who play on different teams, but maybe played in junior together, keep in touch, help each other out with issues that they're going through and things like that. And it's just, I don't know, there's this nice respect that as a reporter I really like as well, being in the room, because some days are harder than others, but as a reporter I always feel respected and listened to, and I love doing my job.
As a rinkside reporter now, I think you're going to be a little more, almost like you're embedded with one team. It's a much more specific audience. It's a real devoted audience, especially here in New England, where hockey borders on religion during the winter. How do you plan, or how are you attacking your new role and kind of bringing that side of the players to viewers and fans across New England?
That's a great question. I honestly really just want to learn from the fans. I want to really embrace where I'm going, or where I'm going to be very soon, and how you guys and girls treat game days and just the Boston Bruins. I want to know rituals and fan opinion too. I sometimes find as a reporter, we're on the inside, obviously, talking to guys, coaches, GMs, other reporters, getting information. But the fans are just so knowledgeable, and I love hearing their perspectives on certain things too. I love having conversations with fans about how they feel about their team, because as you guys know, sometimes when you're looking at something so intensely from a close distance too, you might actually miss something, and it might not be, I'm not talking about stats and numbers, but just maybe something that fans who have been following, a player from since they were in junior that just, let's say, the Bruins signed, they might know more about him than I do off the hop, for sure. So I really am excited to embrace the way hockey is celebrated, and I'm obviously so excited I'm going to a hockey market, and it's probably the best one. And I'm excited to embrace how the city comes around the Bruins. And then my goal, really, I've always been someone who I think, I don't want to say connects, it might not be the right word, but I do get the numbers and, line changes and power play and penalty kill stats are important. And, what scrimmages I'm seeing in practice, I want to be able to relate that to the fans. But I also really, really, really want to relate how, on a personal level, these players they're athletes, and they're professionals, but they're also human. So I'm really hoping to bring the human perspective and good storylines that I'll be able to hear when I'm in the room or on the road with them about, just stuff that goes on a bit behind the scenes that's still related, of course, to hockey. But that's what I'm really hoping to tell, some good stories that aren't just about stats.
Now, I would submit, and Mike, you can probably back me up on this, that as far as fans go, there's probably few people more unapologetically a Bruins fan than NESN Bruins play-by-play man Jack Edwards, and somebody that's very unapologetically himself. What are you looking forward to about working with a guy like Jack and Brick as well, who are both just, really diehard Bruins guys, and certainly a unique broadcasting tandem. What are your thoughts on getting the chance to work with them?
Well, Jack reached out to me. I was super pumped. Like the day that NESN made the announcement, he wrote me this really nice letter, and it was fairly long and in-depth, and it made me realize he took the time to do it, and talked about us as broadcasters being a team as well and helping each other out in the sense of when it comes to what we find out and information and knowing how to tell a good story. And I honestly felt immediately supported, which is great because, as much as I feel like I know about the business and obviously about hockey, you're going to a new place, new city, new country, new team. I have some things to learn for sure, just about how things are done. And Jack, and I'm so excited to work with both of them. And you're right, he's definitely unapologetically a Bruins fan. But that's what I mean. Like, those are the people. If he wasn't doing what he was doing, and I ran into him on the street or at the grocery store, and he wanted to talk to me, I would want to listen to him, and I'd want to learn from him because he just is so passionate and knows so much. And I'm ready to embrace that. I want to hear the perspectives that he's had over the years that he's been working, right? Like, he's been doing it for a while, so can tell me so much about things that, I would be missing when I'm watching games or when I watched them hoist the cup years ago. I wasn't in the room, I wasn't on the ice, so there's certain things that he can, and they can both teach me. I couldn't, like, what would you obviously what would you rather have? Someone who's super passionate and knows so much and is like ready to teach you because he wants you to be just as into it as him and just as good as him, or someone who's kind of like, I'm just doing this for a job, I'm indifferent. It's obviously the first, so I feel like I'm getting a really, really great team.
Would you say it's, and this just out of curiosity, I obviously have never been in your position, but is it any cooler that you're joining or beginning to cover a team that has had so much success within the last year?
Is it any cool? Yeah, yes, because like the hype. The thing is, the hype's been there for a while. Like, the Bruins have been good for a long time, and I know that there had been ups and downs. And I remember a couple seasons ago, a super slow start, and then it turned into a run, and et cetera, et cetera. So, I know there hasn't been always like this much hype, but for sure that adds some excitement. I think the hangover of making it to Game 7 and then not winning, I think that's going to be, a major storyline throughout the season, depending on how the first couple of months go. And as a reporter, you're really trying to make what you're presenting to the fans as fresh as possible. So there could be challenges too, because like that's the obvious storyline. And, was that their year to capitalize? Is it just 1 year too late? Who's, the older guys that are going to start moving on versus the younger guys that they have coming up in their system. So it might make it a bit challenging in the sense that that this year is really going to be very telling, depending it's for the future of the Bruins, that is, and what direction they're going to have to start going in. But definitely way more exciting than a team that didn't make the playoffs, right? So yeah, I'm super, super pumped.
One thing I'm just kind of curious to know about is kind of, as you've watched this team from afar to an extent. I mean, the Bruins and Maple Leafs have met, in the playoffs a ton recently. So it's, afar is kind of a relative term. But what is, what's the feeling about the Bruins, in Toronto, for example? Like, how is this team, this core? I mean, obviously the Bergeron, Marchand, Pastrnak, Yachara, Rask. What's the feeling like regarding the Bruins up there? Kind of just is that rivalry, do you think, is heated as it seems down here?
Oh man, I don't know. I'll have to figure out, but I would argue that it could be more heated, and that's because the Bruins have had obviously Toronto's number, not the other way around, dating back to many, many years ago, but also that, comeback that under 12 minutes, Game 7 comeback was when it was Phil Kessel's team here in Toronto.
Right.
That Leafs fans will never, ever, ever forget. And, I've got friends here who are Leafs fans and family and so on and so forth. And so they're always reminding me, like, oh, you're going to the rivalry. I can't believe it, so on and so forth. But they also talk about how they just can't get past the Bruins hump. Yeah. I think there are people who, when they're facing each other, regular season's different, right? The regular season, it is an important 2 points, but at the end of the day, that is just what it is. And I know that when they faced off in the playoffs, there was this, okay, I think we can do it kind of feeling, but this fear that it's the Bruins again. And so, the rivalry is huge here. I think I'm trying to think if there's any other one for at least Toronto that stands out. Toronto-Montreal has always been one, two Canadian cities, French, English, so on and so forth. But I don't know if there's one stronger right now for Leafs fans than Boston.
How close do you think that Leafs core is to taking the next step and really legitimately competing for a Stanley Cup?
I thought last year, did not think that they can compete for the Cup, but Edmonton a couple of years ago, they made it to the Western Conference Final and then lost the Sharks. And they had that young core, and I know a lot of people in Toronto were like, okay, the Leafs are going to be that. In a year or two, they're going to make it to, like, the Eastern Conference Final, and then we'll see. Then it's anyone's guess. And, with hockey, wasn't this the craziest playoffs in the history of hockey, first of all, when it comes to upsets? So with hockey, as we know, it's just anyone's. It could go any way in the playoffs. Obviously, there are teams that are built to be consistent, and I think experience is a big part of that. But anyway, I truly thought that the Leafs, and before I knew who they were playing, could make it to the second, perhaps third round. And seeing what I saw last year, and even at the end of the season, it just wasn't something. It just started slipping, and their consistency wasn't that good, and their chemistry on the ice just seemed to be a little bit off near the last couple of months of the season. Let's say 2 months. It's kind of on and off. It's tough. They're a tough team to really put your finger on, because sometimes they just look like they own the ice and they are blowing everyone out of the water for a couple of games. Like, they're just dancing, skating around them. And then other times they're struggling to connect passes. So there is so much potential. Like, do I need to go through the roster? Probably not. Like, there's a lot there. But what I think the biggest thing that's lacking is the experience. They had Patrick Marleau for a while, and he was a great leader in the room. He did more for them than one person really can ever for a team. But he's gone now. And these young guys, they've had now 2 or 3 years, coming up on their third year, some of them in their fourth, under the belt, where they can learn from that experience. And I think that that's really a difference maker when it comes to young, talented players, because there's so much that you just can't put into words that isn't a tangible fact or stat. It's about the experience of going through a playoff and learning from that. So they probably have a couple, I would say 2-3 years before they're really at their prime.
So I have another hockey question. This is mainly because I've spent the last month and a half trying to convince Mike that the Florida Panthers are going to be really good this year. What's a team in the Eastern Conference that's going to make a big jump this year?
A team that perhaps didn't make it, and I'm trying to remember what the playoffs went, because, again, I couldn't believe Carolina's story. I couldn't believe Tampa Bay. I couldn't believe Washington. I just couldn't believe any of it. Like, it was. What was the biggest shock for you before I answer that question? Because in the playoffs, in the postseason, of an upset.
In the postseason, I would say it was Columbus and Tampa.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Columbus and Tampa was pretty. It's hard to.
Well, and
sorry,
I remember.
Go ahead, I feel like I cut someone off.
No. Well, I remember too when we were recording our podcast before the Eastern Conference Final, when the Bruins were about to play the Hurricanes. Mike and I were just sitting here being like, "What in the hell happened that led to a Bruins Hurricanes conference final. But I would say, in retrospect, it would probably still have to be Lightning Columbus, especially because of the way Game 1 started, where Tampa jumped out to that quick lead, and everyone thought, oh my God, they're just going to steamroll these guys, and then it was just a complete 180.
You win a game.
And that's, you know what, going back to your question about the Leafs, like that's, you don't plan for things like that, but that's when experience really comes into play. And obviously Tampa's had it with some of their players returning to the playoffs and making it to an Eastern Conference final a couple years back. But anyway, those are the types of things that, like, adversity and going through and all these cliche answers of, like, getting together in the room actually do make a difference. But in terms of who's going to make a jump in the East, I mean, I have to admit, I did jump on the Buffalo Sabres bandwagon a little bit when I think it was a 10-game win streak. Don't quote me.
A lot of people
I can't remember,
did.
but it was, yeah, and I was like, oh, man, I'm happy for, I was so happy for Jeff Skinner, going back to what we were talking about, being fans of players. He's a real, at least with media, he's a real great guy to talk to, very honest, gives you his time, will miss the first bus to sit and chat with you if you have questions, never pushes you to hurry up. So, you know, when he leaving Carolina and then them doing so well, I was like, I feel bad for this guy. And anyway, was happy for him. Obviously, Eichel. So I thought Buffalo maybe was going to make a jump. Maybe they will this year. And New Jersey, I've been kind of scratching my head about what kind of a team New Jersey is. Like, I don't know what their identity is. For a while, you know, with Taylor Hall and the adjustments they made, I thought, okay, this team could be good for a couple of years. Or it could be, will be good in a couple of years and will be consistent. And then also that fell apart. So I guess I'm just going to give my vote to one of those two. As for Florida, I don't think you're wrong about Florida. I don't know if they're making it to an Eastern Conference final, but I don't think you're wrong about them making a push.
All right.
Thank you for validating that. I really appreciate that, because Mike just won't have it.
I'm just sick of talking about the Panthers in the middle of August. All right, we got a couple more before we let you go. I kind of want to just transition back to talking about the new gig and things like that. I think one thing I'm interested in is, like, you know, the process of this entire thing, where you've been traveling all over the world, whatever. You know, you're finally, hopefully, starting to settle in soon. What are, like, the biggest things for you to kind of transition into this new role, and what's the next month or two leading up into, you know, training camp and exhibition, you know, season, the regular season look like for you? What are the biggest things you want to accomplish before you get going first week of October, whenever it is?
I guess, like, you mean in life or
no,
work-wise?
just like with the job, and just kind of how will you know, at what point do you feel ready for the new job, being the Bruins ringside reporter, or maybe you're already there, I don't know.
I mean, I feel ready mentally for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel any fear about, you know, learning what I need to learn, but for sure it's tough, because I have been closely covering other sports and other teams for the last, you know, 10 years. And so when I pay attention to hockey storylines, it's the team that I'm covering that gets the most attention, and then it's, you know, a little bit of a little bit here, a little bit there to the other team. So I really want to, like, immerse myself and just get to know the players and get to know the staff as much as I can, so that they feel comfortable with me being in the room. Like, you know, it's their space, and I'm a guest, and it's my job, but I want them to know when I walk in there that they feel comfortable with me, but also respect that I have a job to do, and I've got to ask questions that sometimes are tough and they don't want an answer. So I really want that relationship, and I think you can't force that. I think it's just showing that you put your head down and work hard to figure itself out. But to flip it a little bit in terms of life, I still haven't found a place to live. I don't have a car. I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm a little bit, I feel very lost. I will be honest with you. I feel you don't really think about, like, okay, wait a second, I got to find a place and then find my closest grocery store or dry cleaner or bank. Like, I realized I got to switch all my finances over, get a new cell phone. So it's like that right now, that I am just like, please God, somebody, I just let this go smoothly, because it's going to be one of those one day at a time things. You know, even getting to know the neighborhoods in Boston, and it's that kind of stuff that I'm like, okay, just get through this. And then I'll be I'm starting work in a few days, and I'm going into the office. And then the more I hang out with the team, I think that kind of stuff will fall into place. And yeah, I really am looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to talking to an audience that really cares and is really passionate, and interacting with them.
Well, the good news is Boston is a notoriously easy city to navigate and get around, so I'm sure you'll have no problems whatsoever.
Never any traffic
yeah.
either. Wide open roads.
Yeah.
That's a lie, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
slightly.
100%.
Oh,
Well,
okay. They're both lies.
Well, I was going to ask too. What level of familiarity do you have with Boston, the city itself? How many times have you been here?
Am I supposed to be honest? Because not that many.
Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
that's fine.
I've never vacationed there. A couple of my friends have done road trips, sports road trips, because obviously, no, I don't even need to explain the powerhouse that you guys are as a sports city. But I have a lot of my friends doing road trips to check out basketball games, football games, and baseball games. But guess what? I'm always working during those road trips, so didn't ever get to make it. Didn't ever get to make it. I did spend a day last week driving around with a realtor, kind of spending literally 7 hours in a car just going around every single neighborhood. I can't believe how beautiful it is, and I'm so excited to just not just drive around, but walk around and really get to know the city. But I don't know it very well. I didn't even know that there were swimmable beaches, and I knew that. Obviously, I know you're on the water. I didn't know that we could swim at the beach. Is that still true? Someone told me that people go to beach and swim.
I'd say that's a relative term. Swimmable,
The
but,
beaches exist. They
Yeah.
certainly exist. I would argue that some of the better ones are if you go a little bit further up on the North Shore. You can have a bit more luck, but there absolutely are beaches in Boston proper.
So.
They're only swimmable for
I'm
2.
learning that.
Yeah, they're only swimmable for 2 months out of the year, but nevertheless, they exist.
Well, it seems. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say same here in Toronto. Most people don't know that we have a pretty nice beach here, but the summer doesn't last that long before the snow kicks in.
Exactly.
So yeah. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, we have one more before we get out of here. I think you kind of talked about a lot of getting to know your audience and things like that, and kind of getting to know Bruins fans. I guess, and this doesn't even have to be related to your reporting or your work, or what do you want Bruins fans to know about you before you kind of hit the ground running here?
That's a great question. So I really care about making, I want the fans to be happy with what they're learning, with what they're getting. I want them to know that I'm really invested into this. I didn't do it because it's a job, I just taken another job or anything like that. It's a fantastic job, but I really thought long and hard about it, in the sense that, not that, I wasn't sure if I was going to do it or anything, but more can I be what I know these people expect me to be, because you guys are so passionate. And I thought about it, and I put myself up to the challenge, and I feel like I can. I would love to interact with you guys if we run into each other anywhere. If you see me, I'd love to, hear about why you love the Bruins so much. And what I'm just hoping to bring is a lot of professionalism, but some fun too. I'm really hoping that my relationship with the players can translate to great stories, like I said, on camera, so that when you're listening to some of my reports and features, that you feel you've gotten to know a player better, and that you're feeling like you're also on the inside of the room, because I know how bad those fans want to be, in a dressing room and see what goes on. But I really want to bring that to them, and I'm excited, and teach me. Yeah, I'm open to reach out to me on social media. I'm open to hearing from you guys, and I'm excited to be part of the team. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the move. It sounds very stressful.
Yes.
But you couldn't even tell through the conversation. But we're overjoyed to have you here, and we're looking forward to it.
Thanks, guys. I feel really welcome. I'm glad I'm on the podcast. I will be on if you'll have me a lot this year. I'd love to. Anytime I find something cool out, I'd love to share it with you guys. So we'll be talking a lot for sure.
Awesome.
Let's do it, because I think people get tired of hearing me and Mike.
Especially if we're talking about the Panthers in August. So.
Right, the Panthers.
Yeah, I'm over
Panthers.
it. Yeah. So,
Alrighty.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for having me on.
Thank you
Thanks
for
again.
joining
We'll
us.
talk
and,
soon.
Good luck with everything.